Hello again, my name is Jason. Today we're going to be talking about A Wrinkle in Time. I read A Wrinkle in Time quite a number of years ago. I first read it back in elementary school, I believe. A Wrinkle in Time was actually published in 1962. I just checked my copy here. Anyway, if you're worried about spoilers, there's been two movies. The book has been around since 1962, so, spoilers. Anyway, I wasn't actually planning on reviewing this book right now, but what happened was I was sitting there, I was thinking about it, and I thought, why not? I actually read it again just recently. I finished it, I believe, Tuesday. I think I started it on Sunday. The reason I'm reviewing it and the reason I was holding off was because I try to read a book and then review it. Well, the book it's in is called The Time Quartet. And the thing is that it's got 4 books in it. And so in my mind I hadn't finished the book, but I actually have, because I finished A Wrinkle in Time, I want to get it right. It's A Wrinkle in Time. Too many pages there. A Wind in the Door, and I'm reading A Swiftly Tilting Planet right now, and then I'll finish up with Many Waters. So in my mind, I'm not done with the book, but actually I am. I've finished both A Wrinkle in Time and A Wind in the Door. So like I said, I'm reading A Swiftly Tilting Planet right now. The other thing is that I read this book before. I came across this book. I picked it up because I'd heard about the other ones, and I'd read A Wrinkle in Time. I think I was in 6th grade at the time, and I remembered liking it, so I picked this book up so that I could read some others in the series. So, what is A Wrinkle in Time about? A Wrinkle in Time is about Meg Murray and her family. Her father has disappeared. Nobody really knows where he is. He is a scientist. Both her parents are scientists. Her father is a physicist, and her mother is a biologist. And they have 4 children. Meg is their oldest. They have 2 twins. I shouldn't say 2 twins. They have a pair of twins. Sounds like there's more than there are. It's like you have a pair of twins. That means you have 4 people. Or 2 twins. They have twins, and then they have their youngest is Charles Wallace. Meg is teenager, and then Charles Wallace is 5, and then I don't know if it's Sandy is the one boy. It could be Denny's or it could be Dennis. I don't know. They kind of got the shaft. I mean, they're not really that important to the story, and so in the recent movie, they just got written out completely. They weren't even in the book at all, or in the movie at all. It was just Meg and Charles Wallace. Anyway, Charles Wallace is about 5 years old, and like I said, they've been having some rough times. Meg isn't very confident in herself. She doesn't really like herself even, and some of it stems from the fact that her father has been missing for about a year. Her mother still writes letters to him and stuff. That it doesn't help that this administration and the town that they're living in aren't very sympathetic to their to the family situation. Well, Charles Wallace ends up meeting these 3 ladies that are rather odd, you would say. Mrs. Mrs. Who and Miss Witch, Mrs. Witch. The thing is that he meets Mrs. What's-It first, and then Mrs. I want to say that it's Mrs. Who, but who knows? I could be quoting these things wrong. Anyway, I know I just read it, and it's the details are already fuzzy. Anyway, they allude to the fact that they know where Meg's father actually is. And they have come to help Meg because her father is in danger. They want to help Meg and Charles Wallace. So they teach Meg and Charles Wallace about the Tesseract. There's a lot of high concepts in here. The Tesseract being, if you think about the dimensions, you have one dimension, you square it, you have the second dimension, you square that, you have the third dimension, and it keeps going until you have more dimensions, and they just keep squaring and building upon each other. And what has happened is Meg's father, physicist, along with other scientists, in the movie, it's they make it appear as if he did this all by himself, and he really did. He is it's always said that he's a smart guy in the books, but anyway, he figures out this fourth dimensional problem, and with it, he's able to travel vast distances across space and even time. They call it tessering, or they say they tesser, a reference to the Tesseract. And this allows them to, instead of traveling in a ship and taking years and years to go from one place to another, even at the speed of light, they can basically instantaneously travel from one part of the universe to the other. They make it, I shouldn't say they make it, what I should say is they give a demonstration in the book of an ant. If you have an ant and you have a flat cloth, and the ant has to travel from one side to the other, it's going to take that ant a while. But if the ant were somehow able to fold the cloth so that the part he's on touches the part he wants to get to, he can just merely step across to where he wants to be. And that's what this travel is. There's very much Christian themes in this as well. I don't want you to get this wrong in the sense that this is a heavily Christian influenced book, and it's still very sci-fi, but it goes back to this element of good versus evil and God versus the devil, but they don't speak of it in those terms. And if you disagree with me, go ahead and tell me in the comments. But the thing is that our world is what they call shadowed. We are troubled. We fight with each other. We're not at peace, and so we're shadowed, which means that we could easily side with the dark, and then we would become a dark planet, where there is no good. There's only the dark. Now, that's not being like you can't see because there's no sun. No, it just means that basically evil rules there. And these figures throughout history, artists, they mention Christ. These are all warriors who are fighting for the light and trying to save the soul of the planet, something like that. So anyway, Meg and the three, Charles Wallace, and Calvin. Calvin is another teenager. He's a couple of years older than Meg, but he meets Meg and Charles Wallace, and they just basically form a bond, and he feels much more comfortable with Meg's family than he does with even his own. He feels that he, and really his family situation is terrible in the book. Yeah, his mother's just kind of shut in on herself. Father's kind of abusive. His parents barely talk to each other. barely talk to the kids. They don't really care. So it's really a bad situation for him. And when he meets up with the Murrays, it's he feels his situation has improved, and he's found where he's supposed to be, found his family, kind of thing. But the three ladies, they help Charles Wallace, Calvin, and Meg travel from Earth to the planet where Meg's father has been imprisoned. And it's a dark planet. Basically, it's a planet where all goodness has been stamped out. It's kind of weird. This kind of harks back to the book I read, I reviewed last time, which is Villains by Necessity, and my belief that in order for you to actually have good and evil, there has to be good and evil. So this planet, all good has been erased, but it's not like they go around murdering each other. It's just that they're now so blah that they're just ciphers. They're nulls. They're just blips and zeros. They go to this typical cul-de-sac. All the houses are the same. All the children are jumping rope and bouncing ball. They seem to be doing normal children things, but then you understand what the strangeness is. They're all doing it at exactly the same beat, and there's no difference in any of them. They go to the to the town, and they meet up with the controller, and the controller takes them to it, which is running the planet, and it takes them to Mr. Murray, to the Meg and Charles's father, and they're able to rescue him, to get him out of there. But at the same time, they lose Charles Wallace. Charles Wallace is very, very smart for a 5-year-old. Smarter than, he's genius level intellect for a 5-year-old. And they book out of there at one point because they're faced with it, and it had already taken over Charles Wallace. It had already basically subsumed his consciousness, and so he had allowed it to come into his mind, and it was too strong for him to push back out. And then Meg and Calvin and Meg's father basically grabs Meg and Calvin and uses the tessering ability to move them off the planet. And Meg then has to go back to the planet and rescue her little brother. I really liked the book, really enjoyed it. Some of the concepts and things, I don't know. I don't feel that they're explored very well or in depth. There are a couple of humorous things in there if you are interested in physics and things, such as when basically the one of the ladies, Mrs. Witch, she's much older and more experienced than the others, and she still accidentally almost takes them to a two-dimensional world where they would have died, because they aren't restricted in that manner, so they can visit any type of planet they want to. Anyway, quite good. As you can see here from the picture, it won. Is that a Newbery medal? Anyway, quite looking forward to the other books in the series. And if you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. Like and subscribe, and I'll come back with another video.